Well, good morning and welcome to the Cash Recovery Coffee Break on this December the 14th, 2011. My name is Harv Plattig. I'm a regional manager with NCS Plus Incorporated, and I'm sure grateful to have you with us on today's Cash Recovery Coffee Break. We're going to be looking into the topic of what is AR management and why should I care? This is a topic that, of course, we at NCS Plus Incorporated are very passionate about, and we know that our clients and many of our friends in the receivables areas of government and healthcare and other industries are also passionate about optimizing and justly building the best in accounts receivable management processes. And it's a good thing that there are a lot of people who care about this because it is a very large issue in our world today. As a matter of fact, it's been estimated that debt recovery or debt is a $25 trillion problem in our country today. And for that reason, we've absolutely got a need and an opportunity to develop something that will help us. And in order to understand how to make it better, we've got to know where we are. In the interest of that, we're going to be opening this Cash Recovery Coffee Break with some information from a fairly recently released Yale Law and Policy Review. This was first appeared on the scene in June of 2011, so this is done quite lately. And it's called The Collection Gap Under Enforcement of Corporate and White-Collar Fines and Penalties. And I want to mention that although this study is named in regards to corporate and white-collar fines and penalties, if you decide to read the entire 74-page piece, which incidentally, if you will send me an email, I'll be happy to forward a copy to you, you'll find that there's really a lot more done on government receivables than just corporate fines. In any case, it is a very valuable study in my view, and something that we can learn from to see where we are so we can start improving the situation. Now, when it comes to this particular piece, of course, it's very long. We're just going to take some excerpts from the introduction. It says, the modern administrative state depends in large part on fines, penalties, restitution orders, and similar sanctions. Contemporary policy assumes that the state, once it orders offenders to pay those sanctions, will collect them. This article suggests that we cannot depend on that assumption. Even where offenders are corporate or white-collar executives with the resources to pay, a fine imposed is in many cases not a fine collected. To the contrary, the available data shows a massive gap between penalties imposed on the books and penalties collected in reality. Existing scholarship has not seriously addressed what happens after the state orders offenders to pay these sanctions. Instead, the administrative enforcement literature has essentially ignored to what extent offenders actually pay the penalties imposed against them. This article seeks to describe empirically, for the first time, the degree to which regulators follow through on enforcing corporate and white-collar fines and penalties. Administrative agencies never collect the vast brunt of regulatory and criminal penalties. The U.S. Department of Justice, for example, has collected in recent years less than 4% of criminal penalties and fines it imposes. The disconnect between enforcement expectations and enforcement reality extends to agency attitudes. According to scholars, regulators impose fines to deter misconduct, compensate victims, and generate government revenue. Ensuring offenders actually pay helps achieve those enforcement goals. During a recession in which governments are slashing budgets, cutting back public services, and laying off workers, they are at the same time neglecting to recover huge sums from corporations and executives that have actually been found to have engaged in wrongdoing. Particularly in such an economic environment, one would expect a groundswell of support to push government agencies to improve their fine collection rates. So in the why should I care, that's the end of the excerpt, in the why should I care category, each of us as a citizen has the expectation that when services are provided in a public forum, there is an equality in sharing the expenses and the costs of those services. When we dial 911, we all expect something to happen immediately. But what makes all of those things possible has to take money. And those public funds being recovered are something that we often assume is going on. Those of us with more specific knowledge, of course, may realize that that's not always the case. But I found this study to be quite revealing in terms of not only corporate and white-collar fines and penalties, but as you'll see if you decide to dig into their study, they really looked deeper than that into receivables of many kinds among the government client group. Now, the question, who should care? Definitely all citizens, because for those who do not pay, someone picks up the slack. I had one ambulance billing director in a county here in Florida tell me not too long ago that $150 of every ambulance ride in his county was bad debt. In other words, for those of us who do pay our bill, we're paying $150 not now for charity cases, because there are charitable programs for those who literally lack the ability to pay, but $150 to carry bad debt for those who have the ability but simply lack the willingness and are not responsive. So all of us as citizens care. More specifically, financial decision makers. Elected officials care about this, and especially that it be citizen-friendly and demonstrably just. Finance officers, healthcare providers, billing managers, and of course, the list definitely goes on. Well, who is it that gets it done when it comes to this area in society? And this group is classified in psychological and societal terms as compliance professionals. There have been some recent books that have been written on this topic of various classifications of professionals in society. And compliance professionals would be the grouping that gets this done. And those, of course, include judges, police officers, but many, many other positions that are not as immediately recognizable as folks who hold society accountable for compliance to the things that in general terms we've agreed on as necessary for society to be successful. So compliance professionals are some people we can be very thankful for, because their efforts help to hold society together in a way that we've come to almost assume is going on all the time. But if you know any people, as I do, in other countries, things can be quite different when you don't have a strong infrastructure holding society together. So very grateful for those compliance professionals, and that's who gets it done. Well, what is AR management then? Accounts receivable is what AR is referring to, and it includes past due bills, fines, fees. What is AR management? Well, I just borrowed from Webster's Ninth on this one. This is just part of the definition, of course, of the word management. But I really like this phrase, judicious means to accomplishing an end. So accounts receivable management is to be a judicious means to accomplishing an end. Oh, what is judicious? Back to Webster's Ninth for me. Having, exercised, or characterized by sound judgment. So judicious means to accomplishing an end. What is the end? What are we seeking here? What is accounts receivable management supposed to produce? Well, here are several ways of expressing that. Optimized receivables process. And thank God there are a lot of ways to optimize things in today's world. And that's a fantastic opportunity for all of us who work in receivables. Another way to express it is that all that should be done is done, and in a timely way. That economy of scale is employed when it's helpful. that economy of resources is maximized. It's to collect more money faster, and to collect more money faster for less cost. And we in society all expect that those who labor in these regards would labor towards a just outcome. And you know, we in our government team at NCS Plus, we like to say we're lifting the economy from underneath, one water bill at a time, or you know, one ambulance bill or code enforcement bill at a time. A just outcome is obviously what should be sought. Well, what are the means? First, and this is our personal or NCS Plus term, restorative recoveries. And by that, we mean bringing back together the parties directly affected. And we'll talk about that on another Cash Recovery Coffee Break. But we have very specific points to go along with that term, restorative recoveries. What are the means? Written credit and collections policy. Once we know what we're trying to accomplish, do we have a clear path to follow to get there? The proper use of technology. Measuring tools to know where you are in the receivables management process and how it's working. Written communications, telephoning, skip tracing, credit reporting, and other legal remedies. Well, as we discuss a little bit about what is accounts receivable management and why should I care, thought you might enjoy hearing an example because of its high visibility name recognition here with the New York City Water Department. Several years ago, the New York City Water Department realized they had a big problem with uncollected water bills. And eventually they allowed us to get involved in helping them. But first, they commissioned a study to be done by a large firm. They paid them $1.6 million to assess the problem of 200,000 delinquent water accounts. For the $1.6 million put into the study, they came back with the deliverable of 3 recommendations, which were, number 1, raise taxes. Just jack up the price on everyone to cover the shortfall of those who were not paying. Number 2, turn off the water. Now, for a lot of people in water billing, that's job 1 when somebody doesn't pay. But in New York, the infrastructure can be up to and over 100 years old. And getting to the valve isn't quite as simple as it is in some other parts of the country. The third and final, and what we thought might have been the first, would be collect the debt. It helps us see that sometimes it just isn't the recognition of the effectiveness of what accounts receivable management can produce. Well, we're going to do another Cash Recovery Coffee Break on January the 18th in 2012. I do want to mention too, as we're going to run out of time here, but I do want to mention that the City of New York actually did engage, as it turns out, our services and recovered a tremendous amount of the money that they gave to us to work on, utilizing these processes that we're talking about here on today's Cash Recovery Coffee Break. So there's a little pitch in there to let you know that this did have a good outcome. But the point is that often people have not studied this issue, and often people don't really know where they are. And that's why our next Cash Recovery Coffee Break, to which you are invited on the 18th of January 2012, is going to dig right into where are we. You get what you measure, your receivables dashboard. And then we're going to go on to do additional Cash Recovery Coffee Breaks in the year 2012. We'll start with that, you get what you measure, your receivables dashboard, and then we'll get into these topics, many of which have been touched on in this webinar today. Collecting more money faster, collecting more money faster for less cost. And then the means of this, the restorative recoveries, we'll elaborate on that. Written communications, telephoning, skip tracing, credit reporting, and other legal remedies. Well, I hope that in the time we've had together, you've seen some information that's helpful to you in what AR management consists of and the care we all need to have as citizens please contact us at any time that we can be of assistance to you. Again, this is Harv Plattig. I'm at hplattig@ncsplus.org. The telephone number 321-332-7578. Have a fantastic holiday season, and thank you so much for joining us on today's Cash Recovery Coffee Break. God bless.